Let's go down to Titty Witty Beach, Titty Witty Beach.
That's where I fell in love. I'm Whitney.
I'm Mindy.
And I'm Deb.
We're three best friends who love nerdy things.
Well, some people think we're nerdy, but we think we're pretty awesome.
This is Our Nerdiest Thing. And welcome to Our Nerdiest Thing.
Hello, fellow nerds, and welcome to Our Nerdiest Thing. Today, we're still talking about Butcher and Blackbird. Hey, guys, lots of triggers. It's a book about serial unalivers, lots and lots of triggers. Be kind to yourself. Listen with care. We're talking about chapters 16 through 19. And this excellent book is written by Bryn Weaver.
The
Deb,
Queen.
Will you get us started off sharing about our nerdiest cocktail?
Of course. Tonight's cocktail is named Friends with Benefits. And it's themed after mind-blowing sex. This drink pairs well with bathtub confessions, raven tattoos, and moving to Boston.
Aww.
And it may cause you to enjoy the best meal you've ever had on a restaurant table.
Oh.
If you know, you know.
I see what you did there.
It has gin and salted caramel sauce and lime and triple sec, which sounds weird.
It's good.
It is so fucking good.
Yeah,
It is like one of
never-
the best cocktails I've made in a long time.
Yeah,
It is
yeah.
so good.
Delicious.
And rim your glass with a cocktail sauce. You won't
More
be
on
sad
that
about
later.
it. More on rimming later.
Oh,
So
man.
yeah, Friends with Benefits. Check it out. It's on our Instagram and at ournerdiestthing.com.
Highly recommend. It is a delight. Well, thank you so much, Deb. Mindy? The wheel has spoken.
Yes.
Whose turn is it to do our nerdy dirty
Not
recap?
me, not me.
It's
not me.
mine, and I've already had a cocktail and a half with gin in it, so we'll see how good this goes.
Mindy and I can't handle gin or
Or
rum.
rum.
So if you're ever with us in public, which we do meet you guys out at book events and stuff, just get us one of those and we will be good to
We'll
go.
be super fun.
We're fun anyway, damn
Even
it.
more than normal.
No
Yeah.
more than normal, yeah.
Well, Mindy, you've got
All right.
30 seconds to tell us what happened in this
All right, I
section.
actually think I kind of have this one.
Before you start the clock, I just realized, because we're doing our YouTube studio feed too,
Yeah.
you can always go to, and I'm sitting here licking the caramel off my glass. I forgot that this is going to go on air somewhere, and I'm like,
You're licking your rim.
I'm rimming my cocktail.
At least this one tastes like salted
I was going to say,
caramel
it tastes like caramel.
and not like ass.
I bet someone's ass tastes salty.
All right.
And on that
note, all right, Mindy, are you ready?
Yeah, okay.
Here we go.
Sloane dreams of the night she killed her art teacher and wakes to Rowan, who then gives her a bath while she teases him and he explores. Sloane has all the piercings and she finally admits that she wants Rowan and no one else. And then they finally get it on.
Yeah.
Multiple times. Sloane sees that Rowan got the raven she drew tattooed on his back. More sex. Fionn doesn't get any sleep and is cranky and Rose loves it. Rowan takes Sloane home to Boston to take care of her while her shoulder heals. Sloane moves to Boston because she can't stand to be away from Rowan. Rowan is opening a second restaurant called Butcher Blackbird. Sloane gets edged into the kitchen and then there's more sex on a table.
Sex on a table. That sounds like a rock band name, doesn't it?
Sex on a
Sex on a
table.
table.
Sex on a table.
Or
Sounds
edged
like
in the kitchen.
Edged in the
Sounds
kitchen.
like a Guns N' Roses song.
Edged in the Kitchen is a better band name than Sex on a Table. That's so great.
It's also a good sex tape name.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
That was really good, Mindy. You did a good
Way
job.
to go.
I
Yay.
mostly made it.
No, that was great. That was really good. Well, Mindy, you're still up. If you want to share about our nerdiest vocabulary.
I know y'all are going to be super excited about this one.
Is it anal?
Kind of.
Don't worry, I'm talking about anal later.
know.
When I try to pick things out for our nerdiest vocabulary, I try to keep it interesting, right?
Well, yeah.
So I just decided that I needed to learn more about the term rut into
Oh.
as a
He
term
does rut on that.
for rough sex because he says he ruts into her. I mean, there's a reason it's a term for rough sex, right?
Right.
Okay, so
Sure.
Tell me more.
it's from the Old French for noise, roar, or bellowing.
Oh.
And
Wee.
and from the Latin for
Thank you to our French listeners, by the way.
to roar. But see, that like sounds super animalistic. right?
Yeah, it does.
And so
I think Rowan was roaring.
well, it turns out it is animalistic because the Cambridge Dictionary defines it as the period of the year during which particular male animals, especially deer and sheep, are sexually active.
Yep.
During this time, males often fight each other for access to the females. So they're like in competition.
Open
And
your legs, girl.
Also, the phrase in
Okay. I totally...
When you say access, that's what I think. You know?
Whitney. Can we
mean,
pause?
that's what it means.
Can we pause for 5 minutes? I'll be right back.
So also the phrase in rut generally means sexually active. So I tried to find some funny Urban Dictionary definitions, but they all pretty much just said fucking.
Well, there's only so many
that's
ways.
what it means.
Yeah.
There's a book coming out soon that I arc read by Ruby Dixon called Bull Moon Rising. And his whole thing is he's going to essentially go into heat, but he says, I'm going to go into my rut. And that
Yeah.
does give you a very specific picture. I mean, I feel like rutting is like fucking you into the mattress.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah.
or
Or off of the mattress.
Right. Yeah.
But it's
headboard banging.
Yeah.
I'd always had a very animalistic feel to me, anyways. But now I realize that's why, because it is.
Because it is.
Yeah. So
You were reading into that.
the more you know.
Yeah.
The more you know.
Yeah.
Don't sue us.
Well, thank you so much, Mindy, for all of that. That was a lot of information between the recap and the vocabulary.
It was.
Thank you for that.
There's a lot of sex in these chapters.
This is the sex
Yeah,
section.
This is the penultimate.
Yeah, this is it right here. Well, let's get into the details of all of the sexy times and start talking about our favorite moments.
What was yours, Whitney?
Mine was actually the two reveals that show Rowan's devotion basically to Sloane. The fact that he has a booth permanently reserved for her at both 3 in Coach, his current restaurant, and Butcher and Blackbird that has not opened yet is just super sweet. I love that he is just so, like, I guess, confident in his love for her and the fact that they would end up together, or that even if they wouldn't end up together, he still is like all in with Sloane no matter what. And he's just so sweet, but only with her. And I really love that about their little, I feel like that's a piece of a soulmate trope, which you guys know that I'm like a
Fated
sucker
mates.
for a soulmate.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that feels very like soulmatey to me. And I love the note for the hostess that got revealed that we kind of knew something like that was happening when she goes to Boston the first time, and the hostess is like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I forgot to tell you, when it says that if you see somebody who looks like they want to run. That made me laugh. So I guess he knows her so well. Because that is.
And then what does he underline 7 times? I fucking mean it.
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
I'm serious.
Right, yeah.
I loved that.
Whitney, mine is also the restaurant reveal when he takes her there. I've read this book 4 times.
Yeah.
It hasn't even been out for a year yet, for the record. I tear up every time they
It's
go
really
to the
sweet.
Butcher and Blackbird restaurant. And just like you said, I wrote almost the exact same thing. Rowan is so sure of his feelings for Sloane that he literally makes a restaurant based off their relationship, which good job on his confidence, because that could have gone really south if like she wasn't in love with him. But they also tell each other they love each other for the first time.
I know, it's really sweet. Well, and the booths, the tables that he reserves permanently for her are like exactly where she would want to sit.
Right, equidistant from both
Yes,
exits,
like
where she
he
can see
knows.
everyone.
That was one of my favorites, was when Lark points that out, that the table that he reserves for Sloane is sheltered and the same distance between the exits, because he knows that's where she would go anyways, because he noticed that first time when they're sitting in the diner.
Yeah.
So that was one of mine. And then I also loved that moment when it finally clicks for Sloane that Rowan has been 100% all in from the beginning. And when he said mine to her out in the woods, he was claiming her and not Francis. That moment that all kind of clicks for her is like, oh.
And I'm like, kiss him, you fool.
Come on. He's one of my, but I mean, he's up there with Dean Winchester on one of my favorite serial killers.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a weird list to have.
My husband said something the other day. You guys will think this is funny, because when I went to a Polycon, Gemlyn C. she has this Dean Winchester artwork, and I got this blanket, and I've talked about it before, because his naked chest is like 90% of the blanket. I just thought it was a little bit of it. So I brought it home and I'm like laughing about it. And my husband said something the other day. He goes, how would you feel if I had like a blanket with a woman on it? And I was like, you have to understand, I'm not necessarily attracted to Jensen Ackles. I am attracted to Dean Winchester, who is a fictional character.
Correct.
And I appreciate the artwork that this artist did for this blanket. That's why I love it. And he was like, oh. And I was like, yeah, if I saw Jensen, I'd be like, hey, bro.
Yeah, it's not.
If I saw Dean Winchester, I'd be like, hey, bro. I'd be pushing my booties together. What's up, lover? Yeah, exactly.
Quick sidebar, because I just thought of it and it makes me laugh. So when you're talking about like this devotion from Rowan could have gone south, it makes me think of Vanderpump Rules in one of the earlier seasons when Sheena, she was having some hard times. She was trying to have a relationship with F-boys. And they were like, no, I'm just having sex with you. And that was it. And there was this one guy that she was like trying so hard. And she was telling the other girls about like, you know, I can't believe he's treating me like this after like everything that we've been through and all the things that we've talked about. And she reveals that this guy loves penguins. And so she paid however much money to adopt a penguin in his name and like did this big book presentation, I guess, of a certificate or whatever. And he was like, okay, see ya.
Yeah.
He
like it's not worth
he like
it.
broke it off. But when you were saying like that could have worked out in a very different way about Rowan and the tables, that's immediately what I thought of. And I'm like, that kind of has the same vibes as like permanently reserving a table.
Well, there's the whole thing like with 50 Shades too. Like it works because he's a billionaire, but if he lived in a trailer and wanted to do those things.
Yeah.
And okay, hold on. I want to reiterate, there's nothing wrong with living in a trailer. And the picture I'm picturing in my mind is like the home that the guy lives on in Midnight Mass. Like there's no electricity, no water.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by trailer. And so like, again, if some guy was like, let's go back here and let me tie you up, it would be very different, right?
Oh,
Different
man.
vibes.
Good times.
Yeah.
Good times. Well, let's talk about our least favorite moment.
You guys know what mine is because we've talked about this a million times.
I think it's the same as mine.
What's yours?
Obviously, the use of the words pleated whole.
100%. That phrase does not work for me. I think Brynne Weaver is a brilliant author, but I personally appreciate when romance authors use real terms like ass. I would even like butthole over pleated hole, to be honest. And butthole is not a sexy word either. This particular phrase is the absolute only thing I dislike about this book.
Yeah.
The only time where I was like, wait, what? Don't call it a pleated hole. What's wrong with you? So, okay.
Yeah.
Having said that, romance readers are seeing a lot of anal sex in books nowadays.
It's like almost trendy.
It is.
It's like a trend thing.
So I wanted to give our listeners a safe space to learn about it. So
before you start, I just want to say last week's episode at the very beginning sounded like I was talking about like anal. And I was, but I want to be very clear that I was talking about a book. That was not clear. I don't remember, but it's like the middle of our conversation, and I'm like, I would like to be very clear here that I was talking about a book. I was not talking
about your anal sex life.
Yes, like
air.
I was not talking about my actual like intimacy.
Right.
So just there are people that know me in real life that listen to this.
Right.
So clearing that up, Deb, tell me everything
about anal. Okay, so we are a sex positive podcast. We believe in consent and adults, and if you're both of those things, you do what you want to do. We are not here to yuck anyone's yum. So if I just said that and you're like, ew, anal, I would say educate yourself on this because it's not really what you think it is. Okay. So I want to give a shout out to bboutique.co for a super informative article about how to safely and pleasurably enjoy anal sex. It's linked in the show notes of this episode for anyone who wants to learn more because obviously I'm not going to cover every single thing in the article. When we had Emily Rath on the show, and shout out to Emily for her book release, Pucking Sweet. It just came out this week. Woo-hoo. She spoke about having to suspend your beliefs when it comes to anal sex in books because she talked about how there is a level of prep and cleanliness that are very important, but are often left out because, that's not really sexy. Yeah, exactly. So most books that we read nowadays have the fella like stretching the chick's anus for like 2 seconds with his fingers and then they're just like jamming it in there, which is not really how it works. And, even though no one wants to read about safety and cleanup and sex scenes, I wanted to make sure that our listeners who might be interested in this know that first, anal sex really should never be painful or bloody. And I feel like that's what a lot of women think of, right? That it's going to hurt really bad. And also that our anus is an actually complex system. So prep and care are very, very important. So let's get started.
The more you know.
The more you know. So first, let's talk about supplies. A few things that you need to have on hand is number one, lube, and lots of it. Lots of it. You also need sex toys. Go, Whitney, what? Whitney?
It just makes me think of the New Girl episode with Schmidt when he loses his virginity. And there's just like lube everywhere. She's like, I think we have enough.
I think during the next couple minutes while I'm talking, Whitney's going to deflect a lot.
Oh, yeah.
This makes her anxious.
It makes me very uncomfortable.
I want to point out again, Whitney, anal sex should not hurt. And I think we are taught that it. I think the reason all of us are so squeamish about it is because people don't know how to do it. Yeah. And so we are taught that like it's going to be very unenjoyable for the partner.
Well, and honestly, for me, I'm one of those people that I'm like, not interested. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not curious. I'm just kind of like,
which is fine, right? If you don't, and that's something I say later, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. You don't, your partner should not pressure you into doing this. Yeah. Okay. So we talked about lube. You also need anal sex toys, and I'm saying anal sex toys for a reason, and I'll explain that later. Also, a lot of people use like an anal douche or an enema. And then if it is not like your partner, like your long-term partner, you probably want to use gloves and a condom. So lube is the most important part of this process. And honestly, in any sexual process, I mean, use lube, guys. Like spit is not lube. Ew. I just want to put that out there. It is not the same. And even with vaginal sex, lube makes things very nice. Okay. So.
And also be careful with the ones that are like warming.
Yeah. All I read is yeast infection lube. Okay. So this article points out that using a desensitizing lube is a big no-no with anal sex because you need to know if you're in pain.
Oh,
if
so that's like a warming or...
If you're in pain, you need to stop. That's what the article says over and over again. It should not be extremely uncomfortable for you. It should be like pressure. So next are anal sex toys to prepare your booty for some penetration. Anal sex toys are shaped differently from other sex toys for a reason. And to quote this article directly, if it doesn't have a flared base, it doesn't go in your butt. And I remember that YouTube video that went around last Christmas where the ER doctor had all those little Christmas tree ornaments, and he's like, doesn't go in your butt. Doesn't go in your butt.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Okay, so the reason that you want it to be flared is that if you start having an orgasm and contractions from an orgasm, anything without a flare base is going to get sucked up in there. Yeah. So you do not want your nerdiest thing of the week to be an ER visit. An ER visit to get a dildo out of your butt. Okay,
we were just trying some new things.
Imagine.
That's an episode of Grey's Anatomy where they talk about reading an article, and they were like, "We tried number 33 or like whatever it is." Yeah,
so
that's exactly what it is.
Anal toys are flared at the base. Okay, they need to be flared. So there's a lot of different options for anal play, and couples just need to find the right toys that work for them. Okay, so now here comes the part that we don't really see in books. So before anal penetration, if you need to have a BM, have a BM. If you don't need to go, don't stress about it. And I learned from this, the excrement is actually held in the rectum and is not stored in your anal canal, which is where the penis would go. So you don't have to worry about, and this article does say, they're like, okay, shit happens, but like it most of the time does not unless you need to go. So they recommend taking a shower, and then if you want to, using an anal douche or enema. It's not required, but if it makes you feel better about being clean up there, just be sure to do it a few hours before anal play so that everything's kind of worked its way out, if you know what I'm saying. And honestly, this feels like a lot of work to me.
I know.
But if you love this type of play,
I was just thinking that exact same thing.
I'm definitely a wham bam thank you ma'am type of lover. I want to get down and like get to it. I don't want to prep. I don't want to.
I need more spontaneity than having to plan ahead that much.
But I mean, if you are in a homosexual relationship between two men, that's your option, right? Sure. So, and again, you don't have to do this, but if you are worried about that, then you can. And they say it's worth it. So let's get down to the actual action. This article recommends warming yourself up sexually beforehand and using lube to get everything ready. And I'm going to quote the article again. It says, don't expect to go from 0 to dildo on your first go. Start with finger penetration very slowly and build yourself up to anal toys. If it's your first time, a finger may be as far as you get.
Yeah.
And so just remember to breathe. And again, I want to just reiterate this. Stop if it's painful. Whether it's a finger, toy, or penis, the key when you're done is to pull out very slowly. This helps reduce the possibility of injury, and can also, if you pull out quickly, it can be really overwhelming for your partner to suddenly have that loss of fullness. Like, it can feel very weird for them and uncomfortable. So you don't want to do that to your partner. Speaking of partners, trust is crucial with anal play, as is clear communication. So if something doesn't feel right and it hurts beyond pressure, tell your partner right away. If you don't want to go any further, tell your partner. And if you just don't want to, tell your partner. That is okay. They need to respect that. Consent doesn't just happen before sex. It happens all through it too, right? And finally, and this goes for any intimate play, aftercare is essential. Be sure to help your partner clean up and care for them emotionally. Sex is often a big deal to one or both of the partners, and taking care of their emotional needs afterwards is imperative. So if you want more info on best positions for anal sex, or if you want to know more about like the safety risks or how to avoid STDs, you can visit the link from Belisa Boutique. It's in our show notes. And don't forget to never yuck someone else's yum. If this isn't for you, that's okay. If it is, go get it. So anal sex, don't call it a pleated hole. Just tell her you want to fuck her in her ass. She's going to enjoy that a lot more, his ass. Like, don't say I want to put it in your pleated hole. In conclusion.
Anyway.
So what was your least? Yeah. So
yours was the pleated hole too.
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
So,
Okay.
but I think I have always thought that it's supposed to hurt, to be honest, and that's why I've never really been very interested in it.
Yeah.
And you read in books about how it can be pleasurable, but I didn't really understand that it should be pleasurable.
Right.
I will say I appreciate it. I think it was in this section that she does mention, she's like, usually it's like, oh, it feels so good. Yes, it does. But it also, I mean, at first it's a little uncomfortable. I mean, it is. It's just something that, especially if you're not used to it. So like, I appreciate it in this section. I'm pretty sure it's from Sloane's point of view. And she says, I felt like that little bit of pleasure and that little bit of discomfort. And to me, that felt more realistic.
Well, and this article even points out, they're like, look, if you're watching porn and they're just like sticking it in their ass, they're like, they have prepped. They just did it off screen.
Yeah.
Right.
You didn't see that. They have either spent the day, like, taking care of themselves.
Right.
Or they have done like anal play leading up to it. It doesn't, you can't just stick it in there.
In real, like in
which
real
is what
life,
I think a lot of men think they can be able to do. It's not a vagina. It doesn't stretch like that. So take care of your partner, people.
yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Whitney, are you all right?
Feeling great.
I want to point out that when Deb said that this was going to be her deep dive, Whitney said, I don't know if we're mature enough for that.
I think we did a good job with our maturity level.
Yeah, you did.
Well,
What was your least favorite thing besides my deep dive?
shockingly, it was not the pleated hole itself. It was a piece of that scene when Rowan mama birds Sloane and
with his
spits
cum,
their juices
that was a
into
little
her mouth.
That's not my favorite.
Grossed me out like very hardcore. I did not like that at all.
I will say there is something sexy about them being like intermingled, right? And like, if you continue to have sex after that has happened, and like, there's something very loving about that. But I really don't want anyone to spit it in my mouth.
No, I didn't like that, and
I don't like spit at all. To be honest,
I don't enjoy that part of kind of more like dominating a dominating partner in sex when they're like, swallow it, you can take it all. I'm like, no, I don't want that.
I kind of like that, but
not with that specific action though. You know,
again,
like,
if you like this, that's fine. We're just saying it's not our favorite.
For me, it was my least favorite moment. What about biggest revelation, guys? I loved the reveal that Rowan got Sloane's drawing tattooed.
That was
on his
mine
back.
too.
That's mine too.
I loved that, and that he has the drawing and he put it in a frame and keeps it like in his kitchen so he can see it every day. That's so sweet. I just really love that a lot.
Well, and for me, it makes Rowan even hotter to have that big old tattoo on his back. Oh,
yeah. Well, and I love the fact that, again, much like the booths, it didn't matter to him if Sloane ever like reciprocated the feelings.
Right.
Like he knows how he feels about her and that she's always going to be important to him.
And enough to make it a permanent part of himself.
Yeah. Like way before he knows whether she feels the same way or if things are going to work out, if they're ever going to have a relationship, even if it's a temporary one.
Right.
You know, I love that
Because
a lot.
good art's good art.
Yep.
Yeah.
Too, right?
I love that.
And he talks about how beautiful it is.
It was really sweet.
Loved it.
So let's talk about favorite spicy scene, which kind of this whole section is like one long spicy scene.
It kind of is.
Like,
yeah.
It is.
So what did you guys say for your favorite?
So mine was when he says, face the counter and pull up your dress. He says, face the counter and pull up your dress, Sloane. This scene with the desserts is delightful. The thing, though, is I was kind of giggling because if I was asked to just say a random fruit during all of this, I would probably just scream like kiwi because where'd persimmon come from, right? And it reminded me of Ross Geller being like vulva.
Yes, I would not be. It would be like banana. That would be it.
And he'd be like, very good, Whitney.
Yeah.
That was the correct answer.
This is not unique. It needs persimmon. And I was like, vulva. Like,
Freaking persimmon. I didn't even know that was a fruit.
I don't know what persimmons taste like.
I don't either.
So apparently she has a good palate.
yeah,
for
she's got a
chef
sophisticated.
boyfriend. Yeah, exactly. What was your all's?
Mine was actually very similar. I really enjoyed all of chapter 16, which was like basically all the foreplay. But oh my God, the edging in the kitchen with the desserts. I mean, if you're going to feed me while you're inside me,
Count me in.
I'll be back in a few
Check,
minutes.
Check.
Yeah.
We need another.
Say less.
Here, we're going to take another 5-minute break.
Yep.
Be right back.
Oh, that is really funny. Oh man, yeah, I really enjoyed basically everything of the spicy scene, but not the pleated hole. Is what I wrote.
Or the baby bird, or mama birding.
The mama birding stuff I didn't like, but I think my favorite part of the spicy scenes was Rowan talking her through it.
Yeah.
He's a vocal king.
He gives good directions.
Yes, he does. Yes, he.
But he doesn't demean her.
No.
At all.
Right.
And
No.
again, some
Yes.
people like that, and that's fine. But like, she needs the respect, and he knows that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really enjoyed that.
But he
quite a bit.
also knows that she needs him to be, she doesn't need him to be a
charge.
pansy. You know, like, you know.
Yeah.
So she needs a little bit of everything.
You can be a dominant lover, and if they need the respect level, keep it.
Yes.
Lover.
Lover.
What about chapter MVP?
Mine was Rowan's dick. I feel like this section of the book deserves one of Lark's gold stars.
At least one.
Absolutely.
A whole page of gold
one
stars.
for his dick and one for each of Sloane's tits.
Mindy, who was yours? What?
Mine was Rowan. Also, my first line in my notes is, "Damn, that man makes me wet." But
That's why I put a towel on your chair.
she's like, "I know Mindy's gonna, make a mess tonight." So that's why she gave me gin.
Yeah, this is my fault.
No, but I also wrote in there, part of it, the reason that he's the MVP is for the note that he wrote on the hostess station about the standing reservation. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I like that. That's very sweet.
So really basically everything we've already talked about, but Rowan.
But yeah.
And that he makes me wet.
That's just an
What
extra
makes you
bonus.
wet?
That's a bonus.
Well, my chapter MVP, I actually said Butcher and Blackbird, the restaurant. Because that is where Sloane is finally comfortable enough to admit that she loves Rowan after seeing this new place and all the different ways that he's committed to her, right? Like she's already seen the tattoo. She's already seen the note at the hostess station at 3 and Coach. She's already seen the permanently reserved booth table. And there's a lot of spice, but it's also a lot of sweetness. And you guys know I'm a sucker for the sweetness, not just the spice. But yeah, I just really good job, new restaurant. What about favorite secondary character?
There's not a whole lot of secondary in here. I put Lark just because she put a gold star on Rowan.
I did the same
liked
exact
that.
thing, and I really loved that he even keeps it in his notebook of ideas. He
I
takes it
know.
off and
That's
puts it in
really
his notebook.
sweet.
Yeah. So me for the same exact reason. Her love of him is infectious.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I picked for my secondary character Sloane's safe word. laughed because Chainsaw.
I almost
That was
said that.
awesome,
That's
yeah.
so
I thought
funny.
that was really funny. I enjoyed that quite a bit. Well, let's talk about favorite quotes. I actually don't think we've been throwing quotes out this
We
episode
haven't.
the way that we normally do. I have 3.
Go ahead, Wet.
So I laughed a lot when Sloane was talking about feeling ugly, basically, because of how bruised her face was after they left the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house. And she says that her bruise is, no, I think Rowan says her bruise is the color of eggplant. And she says, eggplant, it's the worst vegetable. That made me laugh quite a bit. So that's the first one.
He's like, not the way I cook it.
I know, right? And then when Rowan, the next morning after they've been like screaming sexy times all night long, says about his brother, Dr. Blue Balls is just a little jealous. that also made me laugh. And then this is an example of Rowan talking her through it where I was like, yes, with like multiple S's at the end. Yes. Where he says, you fucking tell me so that you know when I ruin you for all other men, it's what you asked for. Like,
Whitney just bit her lip, for those of you that can't see her.
go to our YouTube channel and check
You
out
can see it
check that out.
in all its glory.
But yeah, that was my favorite little piece of Rowan. Like,
Christ.
that was just for our YouTube watchers right there.
Look at the camera and do that. There you go.
We're
You
not
look at the camera when you do that.
we're not allowed to have gin anymore.
Whitney's had one drink over
Yeah.
2 hours, guys.
I'm crazy. Oh man, what are your all's favorite quotes?
I had 2. One was Sloane after Rowan makes her orgasm when he basically says he loves her without actually saying it.
Yeah.
And she says, this is the best, like 5 words. I don't unravel, I detonate. I think I would too. And then
I think you already did all over my
I was
face.
gonna say, it sounds like you did.
but then I had that Rose said this, but maybe it was Rowan. When she says, "Don't worry, Blackbird, he'll be fine." Dr. Blue Balls is just a little jealous.
I read it a couple of times
Yeah.
because I wasn't 100% sure, and I think I just decided it had to be Rowan because he said Blackbird.
Yeah, I know.
Because I thought maybe it would be weird if Rose called her Blackbird.
That would be,
you know what
kinda
I
weird.
mean?
Although I don't know, I feel like Rose
It could
comes
be,
up with
though. Yeah.
all kinds of stuff. But
Somebody
yeah, I love
said
that. That line was hilarious.
Whoever it was funny.
Yes.
So props to them.
Hysterical.
So mine is, Whitney, to go back to what you said, mine's also when they're in the bathroom talking about the eggplant. He says, "You're beautiful to me. That color right there, how many things can you think of that are that color? It's rare." And Rowan making Sloane feel beautiful when she literally has the Carhartt logo
Yeah.
stamped into her face is so impactful. Like, he made her feel sexy in that moment by telling her the color of her bruises was beautiful. But I fell for it too.
Yeah.
1,000%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, Robbie, why don't you ever say stuff like that to me? He's like, well, hold up now. That's not a fair comparison. Do you guys have any questions?
I have one. What exactly has Rose been through to be able to restfully doze while Sloane and Rowan are having a fuck fest? A full-on fuck fest where it says they both scream.
Yeah.
Like, I can't wait for her book in February.
I
Like,
know, I'm
and
excited.
then, she's laughing at Fionn because she knows he got, like, no sleep. And she's like, I slept just fine. What are you talking about?
Mindy, do you have any questions?
I have a couple questions about Rose as well. Like, why is she staying with Fionn? Like, I'm sure it's because of her injury, but how did it happen and why Fionn? And
It's like, who is Rose?
Yeah.
Why is Rose?
I'm just curious about her life in the circus, how it shaped her. I'm just, what little we know about
Yeah.
her, just, I'm very intrigued by her. But then I also need to know, how in the hell did Rowan stay hard while he was sleeping?
Because he's
Rowan.
He's Rowan. Yeah.
I don't,
Biologically, it should be impossible.
it should be.
But
I don't know. Men get hard in their sleep.
Yes.
Yes.
Usually not for like hours. I think you're supposed to call a doctor.
But I think Sloane was like, don't call a doctor.
Yeah.
It's
Probably
fine.
not.
It's fine.
Yeah.
I'm just like,
This is all
okay.
great.
I'd like to know that secret.
Well, my question is what horrible thing is about to happen, because this feels very like HEA.
It's a little too early for
and
the
we've
HEA.
got several chapters left.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I am not looking forward to, and spoiler alert, to him kind of breaking Sloane's heart for a minute.
I know.
I hated him for a minute the first time I read the book.
yeah,
Hated him.
Me too. Yeah, but it's like there's too much book left. This is
Right.
all too like happy and HEA. Like, okay, something
Yeah.
else is gonna happen.
We have 20%
so-
of the book left.
Right. So that's my big question at this point. But what are you guys looking forward to?
Mine's more like something I hope happened. Like, they better have cleaned off that table after they had sex on it.
He still had to have a health code inspection.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
major disinfecting.
I'm like,
yeah.
let's go
Black
clean
light,
that up.
checking it all out.
I know that's not sexy to talk about cleanup.
Well,
but
it's important though. We
It is.
just
Important.
learned with
It
Deb's
is.
You need
deep
things
dive.
to be sanitary. You don't want to get an infection.
yeah.
What are you looking forward to, Deb?
I really, like I said, I just don't want to watch Rowan break her heart.
Yeah.
That's not. So I'm telling you what I'm not looking forward to.
Well, that wasn't the question.
Tough shit. I made it one.
Oh, I have 3 things that I said I'm looking forward to, and they all have exclamation points.
Oh,
so just
okay.
keep that in mind. So more sweetness,
More sweetness.
More sweetness.
more sexy time,
More sexy times.
no pleated holes.
No bleeding holes.
That we know of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just keep it to yourselves.
Just
you know,
say you're going to stick it in her ass, okay?
I do have one quick deep dive. Do you guys have anything else you wanted to talk about before I do that? Because it's like only kind of related to the book.
Okay.
I decided to give everybody a break from true crime. So I'm not going to talk about like murder or horrible things today. I wanted to talk.
We like your murder.
I know.
Well, you know, I wanted to keep it light and breezy. I'm breezy. So, listener and friend of the podcast, Amanda, shout out to Amanda. A few weeks ago, she sent me a link to this article from Time Magazine that's about the benefits of reading romance. And so I thought this would be a good opportunity to like just talk a little bit about it. It's linked in the show notes. The article is called Embrace Your Love for Romance Novels. It's good for you. So here we go. The article was written by a clinical sexologist named Maisha Battle.
I want to be a sexologist.
I know,
No.
right? Clinical sexologist. Well, I'm like, how many kinds are there? So the benefits that this article focuses on are sexual benefits of reading romance. So we've talked about this a lot anecdotally, and it's interesting to hear from like an actual career sexologist that that's a true thing and not just a in your head thing. You know what I mean? So we've lived out this truth, but she talks about in this article sharing basically what she is seeing in her practice with her patients, which are mostly women who are struggling with their sex lives. And they're finding that romance novels are really helping to reignite their sexual desires.
I believe it.
Right. So these romance novels, what the sexologist talks about in the article, basically these novels are creating what the writer refers to as responsive desire. And I don't know if that's a true like clinical term or if that's just something that she made up, but she says responsive desire is where you get turned on in your mind first and your body follows suit, which is different from spontaneous desire, which happens in your body first. So that to me sounds like the very stereotypical difference between like desire in men versus desire in women, right?
Sure,
Like,
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
easier to turn allegedly, it's easier to turn a guy on than it is a woman,
Right.
which is true in experience, but
I don't know. I
allegedly.
get turned on pretty easy.
Apparently, so does Mindy.
Mindy
So-
can climax easier than I can, apparently.
Yeah. I mean, obviously not true all the time, but true enough to become a stereotype, I guess.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So this sexologist keeps a list in her practice of different books from all of her patients that she has a list ready to go for new patients that need recommendations, which I thought was
that's
super
awesome.
Yeah, like super, super smart. And so she says that part of the reason that this works so well for so many people is it's helping you figure out your sexual desire in a very safe way. There are
100%.
so many different types of writers and different types of stories that pretty much everybody can find something that resonates with you and resonates with you not in a sexual way, but a character that looks like you, lives like you, represents who you are, or even represents who you want to be. And that connection to the characters allows you to become more connected to the steamier parts of the story. And it's about the emotional connection first, and then the sexual desire follows that, which is exactly what she was talking about, like getting turned on in your mind and then your body follows suit. Like you have to, you as a reader need to have that emotional connection to the characters to have their steamy scenes feel steamy to you, right? Like if you don't really care about the characters, and who cares, right?
I mean, you don't always have to have that, but it definitely helps.
Yeah.
Well, that's what she's talking about, what's working in her practice.
Oh, what's working. Okay.
Yeah. So she also talks about reading the safe environment aspect of it, reading different tropes and different kinks in stories, how that helps you explore your unique desires as the reader and can help you sort of like unlock things that you like and open up with your partner about things that you like and things that you would like to try out with them. And I think we can all relate to reading something and being like, ooh, I'm going to remember that.
Yeah. Can I sidebar for a second? So in one of the Facebook like fantasy romance books, someone asked the other day, what kink has been unlocked for you by reading romantasy? And we've said on this podcast a million times, I feel like romantasy has helped women become more comfortable in their sexuality.
For sure, yeah.
But one kink that I know is unlocked for all three of us is praise kink.
Absolutely.
And so I wrote praise for sure. And someone immediately just writes, good girl. And all these people are like, yes, yes, yes. So I just posted a gif of a waterfall.
Like, put a towel on my chair.
But everyone was like, I can't believe you. She said every person in this group now came here to see the good girl.
I mean, that's so true, though.
Yeah.
And reading about that in a book and realizing that's something that you like requires basically zero vulnerability and zero risk. When, like I've heard of that and I don't know if I like it. Like that requires a lot of vulnerability with your actual partner to be like, I want to try this, but what if I don't really like it?
Right.
But if you read about it in this book with this character that you connect with, you're much more likely to be like, no, I'm going to like this and feel more comfortable to ask for it. Right. So yes, that is true. I declare it.
Waterfall all the way.
I declare it to be so, right? So romance books are just a very safe space to do that kind of exploration. And that safety is a necessary component when you're trying to figure out what you like and what you want and what's going to help with this part of your life if you're struggling with it. So one thing that kind of gets briefly mentioned in the article was that a lot of the patients that this sexologist is recommending romance books to are very uninterested in watching pornography. And she kind of mentions that as just like a brief like throwaway. They're not interested in this, therefore I recommend that, was kind of the way that she said it. And so I'm going to sidebar just a little bit because I thought that this was really interesting because for me personally, I do not like the description of romance books as porn. And I really resist that and I don't really have a good reason for why I don't like it and why I resist that.
Well, because it degrades what we're reading.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's part of it for sure.
And porn does not have to be degrading. But when people say you're reading porn, they're using it in a negative connotation.
In a negative way.
Yes.
Which porn isn't always negative. And a lot of times it's not.
And I think for me, thinking about this article and all the different things that this person was talking about, I think for me personally, it just boils down to the emotional connection. And I think, at least in my mind, like traditional, stereotypical, like watching visual pornography is not usually interested in an emotional connection.
Right.
Like that is not what it's about. And that it's just about sex and lust. And for me, I'm not really interested in that. And I find that problematic for a lot of different ways. But in romance books, the ones that I read anyway, I know there are lots of books that have no emotional are not interested in that, and that's fine.
And sometimes that's kind of hot too.
Well, but I don't like
me.
that.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
for the emotional connection is what it's about for me. Right. And like, I would much rather read a romance book than watch something if I'm like struggling with that and trying to get something to light my fire. It just, that made a lot of sense to me.
I think romance books too give you the opportunity. So maybe you don't need a connection and you like that and you can read it. Maybe you do need a connection and you like that and you can read it. Right.
Yeah.
Where porn, I mean, it's very rare that you're deviating from your very typical storyline.
Yeah.
right.
quote unquote storyline.
Right, which isn't really a storyline,
Yeah.
right? Like
Right.
it's not about that.
They just
it's
get down to it.
Get to take the clothes off. Like that's
Right.
what we're here for.
Yeah.
And I don't really
You need
want.
the connection.
Yeah. There's connection between the characters, but also connection between like me as a reader and the story. And that's what I like. And speaking very frankly, in my own experience, reading romance books has made my marriage and my connection with my husband improve. And I don't think he has any complaints.
Nope.
So
No.
that's just some validation for all of us nerds that love these books and that I think it's helped. Like, no, it has. And it
has
does.
helped.
And it will. And it should and it shall. So
I'd
keep
love
on
to see her
keep on
list
reading.
of romance
I know.
books.
It wasn't included.
Yeah.
I wish that there was like a link to her
Whitney,
website
yeah.
or something.
You
but
should
there
write
wasn't.
her and ask her for the list. I'm
should.
serious. You
Yeah,
should.
maybe. I'll see if I can find her online. But anyway, so this was Time Magazine, and we'll have this article linked. It was a very short article, but I thought it was an interesting read, and I appreciated like a clinical, professional, more. It wasn't like a scientific study,
Right.
but a sexologist who she talked about basically like I mostly talk to women, and a lot of these women like are new moms or
Right.
went through some kind of major life change that they feel like a different person,
Right.
and they're struggling with their sex life because of that. And I'm like, I don't know what that's like at all. Yeah. But anyway, I just thought that was great. And it circles back to what you were talking about. I think it was part of your nerdiest thing or on Tuesday's episode, Deb, about like people are so nervous to tell, like, well, I love to read. Well, what do you love to read?
Right.
I like to read romantic. Like, no, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
fine.
Well, and I
right?
talked about a couple weeks ago how at a show her husband shamed her in front
yes,
of
that
me,
was
and I
awful.
did not like that.
No, yeah.
I'm like, first of all, if you're reading, you're reading.
Yes.
Like, it does not matter. Read because you're reading, and
Yeah.
that is thought provoking. I don't
Reading
care
is good.
if you're reading poetry, or I don't care if you are reading like the raunchiest smut on the planet. You are reading and you are enhancing your mind. And if you are a male and you are threatened by that, pick up the book and read it. You might learn something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's not about typically what the guy looks like or how
Nope.
big his wingspan is. It has to do with how he treats
Yes.
the other, his
Yes.
partner.
1,000%. Again,
Yeah.
the emotional connection,
Yes.
right? Like that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was interesting. Thank you so much again to Amanda for sending that to me. I enjoyed that.
Shout out to Amanda.
Shout out to Amanda. Do you guys have anything else you wanted to talk about?
No,
That's it for
that
me.
was a fun episode.
Yeah.
I
It
loved
was.
it. I felt like just now I was on Delicious Dish. That was fun.
Well, friends, join us next time. We're going to talk about Butcher and Blackbird, chapters 20 through 22.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Like what you heard in this episode? Follow Our Nerdiest Thing on Instagram at instagram.com/Our Nerdiest Thing or Facebook at facebook.com/Our Nerdiest Thing. We love hearing from fellow nerds. Email us at ournerdiestthing@gmail.com.